I'm here with Jason Sparkplug, Burnworth. I don't know why I always want to call you Burnworth. Black belt under Bruno Carvalho. Is that
yes,
how I
sir.
pronounce that?
Yes,
my
sir.
pronunciation. Ex-owner of Team Quest in Chiang Mai. Coach at Fairtex Pattaya and helped set that up when it was all changing. Coach to Stamp Fairtex, who's killing it in one at the moment. Main man from Thailand that I know. I'm pleased to have you on here today. How's it going, man? How is it being back in the US?
Thanks for the kind words and the nice intro there, Russ. I appreciate it. You know, I am not thrilled to be here at the moment, as I think a lot of people are. To make a long story short, I'm here waiting for my wife to get her green card, and once she gets approved for her green card, then we wanted to leave the country, you know, as soon as we can. At the moment, the States is in a bit of disarray, in my opinion. We've done a very poor job dealing with COVID, and you know the political situation here is quite stressful. So I look forward to moving back to Asia, where on a your day-to-day life can be sort of removed from those things.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm sort of in Kenya. When I was in the UK, it just everything feels different for some reason. It's a bit more stressful. I see everyone having to have the right car, having to have this, having to have that, you know, and it's when I'm in Asia, I feel like that. It's flip-flops, short, a shit t-shirt, and I'm happy, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
I really struggle with that sometimes, you know. It's weird to say this. Living in Thailand and not being very fluent in the language and not claiming ownership of that country, I always feel like I'm a guest there. Those things together sort of keep me removed from the political situation there. It's not my, whatever turmoil is going on, it's not my business. I don't want to say it's not my problem, but it's not my business to have an opinion. I don't speak the language, so I don't hear the day-to-day common, arguments of whatever's going on with the government or what people are upset about. But here at the moment, our country's become quite divided, and almost all day, every conversation, everything on television, everything on Facebook is politically divisive. And it takes a lot of your energy, and it spreads a lot of bad energy, in my opinion. And when I live in Asia, I'm just, I don't really speak Thai that well. I'm kind of removed from their situation, and I'm removed from the situation here, so I can focus on my business and my training and whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's like when I was heading around Colombia and things like that, it was like just free of all that, and just meeting people, having their daily lives, just having weird interactions that you have, especially like when you're abroad. I don't know about you, when people ask me about what I love about Thailand, and it's something really simple, is like when I go to the market and they can't speak English, I can't speak Thai. They try to speak English, I'm trying to speak Thai. I get what I want off them. They're happy because they've sold to me. I'm happy because I've got what I want. And it's just a simple, really nice thing. I really love those weird interactions that you have, like,
Absolutely. It sort of simplifies your life a little bit. Kind of cuts out a lot of the distractions and the negative distractions that are going on right now. I remember when I first came back here, I felt like somebody threw me into the ocean. It's like, wow, like all my friends are fighting. They've all deleted each other on Facebook. These people don't want to talk to these people. These people, this group hates that group. I mean, it's gone from a difference of opinion to choosing sides in a war. And I just don't want I don't want any part of it. I have my own opinions, but it's not worth losing my friends over. No,
that it's it. It seems to be everyone's drawing a line in the sand on stuff now, isn't it? And
exactly.
Not on this side. You're not with me, and everyone else is over there. It's like, I haven't got time for that. It's too much negative energy for me, and I just want to have fun and just live my life and chill out, really.
Exactly. I mean, I have better things to focus on. I have more productive things to focus on,
So what are you doing now in the US? You just started a new business, haven't you? Or started something?
I did. I started a new business. I shouldn't say that I started. I'm a partner in a new business. And my business partner, you know, he's the founder, the inventor, and the brainchild. So I won't take any credit for that. But you know, we are partners in the it's investors.club. You can check us out online. Investors.club is the URL. We launched in February, and I just couldn't be more proud of what we've done and what's happening and what it's going to allow us to do.
Not that I've got any money to invest, like, but how does that work?
Okay, well, here's the deal. Like, I used to be a marketer, and I would make websites like, you know, product review websites or informational websites and things like that. And then you make money from them. Yeah. And, you know, I remember the first time I went to sell one of my websites, I didn't even know that you could sell. I didn't even know that there was really a market to sell them. I kind of knew, but not really. And I went to sell it, and, you know, a brokerage gave us a valuation of almost like $400,000. And I was like, man, that's pretty good money. And I just started thinking, and it spurred some ideas in my head, you know, and, I basically, I kind of had a business idea in my head, and I found somebody that was doing something similar already. And I hit him up, and I said, hey, man, like, I see what you're doing, and I've been thinking about starting a business like this, and I want to work with you. And, you know, he kind of said, hey, I don't really know you, and I'm not really hiring right now. So I said, okay, that's fair. And I said, look, I'll work for free. And he said, what? I said, yeah, I really believe in what you're doing. I said, I'll work for free. You don't have to pay me. He's like, wow. He's like, I can't turn that down. So I spent 6 months working for nothing. And, you know, just because I really believe in his idea, it was, you know, synonymous with my idea. And, you know, finally one day he said, hey, I love what you're doing, and I want you to be my partner. And yeah, so that's what happened. You know, it's kind of a lesson. I mean, I knew this already, but it's kind of a lesson for other people too, and especially fighters. I see this a lot. Oh, shit. My phone just fell in my coffee. I see this a lot with, can you still hear me? Shit.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you got me? I see this a lot with fighters when they want to go get sponsorships, right? You know, they'll say, what can you do for me? How much money will you give me? You know, they want to know what these companies are going to give to them. And, you know, from a business point of view, it's backwards. Like, you have to prove your value first, you know, like what can you do for that company that would make it worth it for them to sponsor you? You know, so it's kind of the same thing. And I saw you were going to talk to one of my good friends, Mr. Nick Chapman. You should talk to him about that very point, because he's brilliant. When he was a fighter, he was so good at, you know, putting sponsorship packages together and getting sponsors and things like that. And everybody was jealous of him. And what he did was he very clearly went from business to business and said, look, these are all the things I can do for you if you sponsor me. And he was quite successful. Most fighters, they're so lazy and so entitled. You know, you even mentioned the word sponsorship, and you know what they say? How much is it going to pay me? It's never like, what are you going to do for them? Never. And so they have it backwards. But anyway, I apply the same thing to my business life a little bit. You know, it's like, I know this guy doesn't know me. I know that he has no reason to trust me. I know that he has no reason to pay me. And so, you know, I spent a long time proving my worth. And then he made me a partner in a very, very lucrative deal for me. So, you know, I honestly just couldn't be more grateful to him. And you know, the guy's brilliant. I love everything that he's done. You know, and it just comes with a lot of gratitude, but also there's a lesson there, you know, prove your worth to people.
Yeah, that's something I've been looking at with fighters more so than anything. And what I was hoping to do with this is, you know, and give fighters a platform, give fighters a chance to be able to talk, give fighters a chance to be able to push themselves forward, you know. And it's like, because a lot of times there's that Bushido spirit as well, isn't it? Where they don't, okay, I will fight anybody. I will. I know it's just like everybody's the same, aren't they? You know what I mean? I was speaking to someone the other day. It's like, you know, how you make yourself different with, you know, there's what, 600 fighters in the UFC. How many fighters in one championships? How do you stand out? You know, and if you stand out, then you can go to sponsors and say, look, I do this, this, and this. You know.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, you have to differentiate yourself. And a lot of fighters, you know, I even talk to guys. I mean, first of all, if you ever want to make money, that whole I'll fight anyone at anywhere, anytime. I mean, that's ridiculous. You need to get yourself a manager. It's your job. It's your job as a fighter to believe that. Like, I'm ready at all times. I can beat anybody. Okay, fair enough. But if you're out there making decisions like that, you're bound to be a journeyman. You're bound to end up with a 15-15 record, living from fight purse to fight purse and never making any wealth. That's where it's your job to have a manager that, you know, sort of corrals the bull to go the right way. You know, I mean, you don't want to kill that spirit and tell them, hey, you're not going to win this fight, don't take it. But it's your manager's job to steer that sort of mentality into a lucrative career.
Yeah, like Floyd Mayweather's been brilliant at it, hasn't he? Picking the right fights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. You know, Chael Sonnen was another one who sold everything. You know, and Conor McGregor and Mike Bisping done it in a different way. George St. Pierre was probably one of the only ones who done it with that pure spirit. But you can't replicate it now. It was at that time, wasn't it?
It was, but even GSP, he was smart enough to have brilliant management. Brilliant management. They did all the right things with him as far as sponsorships, outside deals, things like that. I mean, that's why, you know, if you look at how much money he made, I mean, it was a lot, but not a lot in comparison to some other fighters. But he's set for the rest of his life because he made proper management decisions. You know, he had people helping him do the right thing, you know?
Yeah, he's a bit smarter like that.
Yes, so he's brilliant.
So the company you're doing, so what if someone wanted to get involved in that? How do they do it? How much investment does it take? Is it for anybody?
Well, yeah. Here's the deal. When you know, we're called the Investors Club, and here's why. There's a lot. I mean, an unbelievable amount of people out there that have websites and blogs and things like that are making money. And you know, there's a market for people that are flipping. They're buying them cheap and then selling them other places. There's a market for people that are grabbing them as investments and just kind of setting them on the shelf. You know, so basically we're a marketplace or like a buyer's club. So, you know, people pay us and they come in and we make sure that they have money and that, you know, they're properly vetted so that they're able to buy. And then we source profitable online businesses for them to come in and choose from. So we help them buy profitable online businesses, you know, such as the one that I was intending to sell before. And so that's kind of the whole deal. And, you know, a couple years ago, the only people that would have bought websites are website people. You know, people that already know and websites and things like that. But what's happening is something really interesting. You know, if you go in, let's say you spend like $200,000, or I'll give you a quick example. You have $200,000 to invest. Let's say you want to go buy a rental house in the States, which is what a lot of people choose to do. You know, you're probably going to make $1,200 a month. You could take that same $200,000, and if you bought an online website, it would probably return somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 to $8,000 a month. You know, there's a lot higher returns than there are for traditional investments, and there's some barriers to that. People say, "Well, I don't know how to run a website. I don't know how to babysit, or you know, what if it dies? You know, what if it goes down? I mean, there's a lot of risk." But what our company does is we're positioned in a place to kill that risk. So we can actually manage, operate, and grow the asset that you purchased for you. Right. And so what's happening is it used to just be website people buying websites. But now we're getting private equity fund managers and like, you know, people that run investment companies and investment groups. And almost every day, I mean, I have guys that, you know, hey, Jason, I've got apartment buildings all over the place, but they're a lot of work, and then, you know, the returns really aren't there. I'm looking to kind of diversify my portfolio, or I'm looking to kind of put my money into something more passive where I don't have to work as much and I make the same kind of money. But it's changing to where traditional finance guys, traditional investors, people that would be investing in stocks or long-term, you know, funds or whatever, or, you know, even real estate, they're all starting to dip their hands in digital assets because the returns are so much higher. And companies like mine have been able to mitigate the risk and the barriers to entry. So anyway,
wow.
so that's what we do. So we help people buy profitable online businesses, and then if they're not capable of managing them, we have a full end-to-end management service where we babysit and grow and manage the asset for them. So it can be totally hands off.
Wow, that was nothing like what I thought you were going to say. When you were saying company, I thought it was going to be something totally different. That's really cool. It's really different as well. It is
very different. Excuse me?
Is there many people in that business?
Yep, it is. It's growing. I mean, as soon as we put sites on the market, they're getting offers. I mean, we had several just sell yesterday. You know, so yeah, it is growing and growing and growing, and people are they see the high returns and they're willing to throw anything at it. I mean, people are begging me to take large amounts of money from them and invest for them. We don't do that, not yet. You know, I'm not in a position to do that, and I'm not a financial advisor for anybody by any means. But yeah, it's becoming incredibly popular.
Okay,
I mean,
brilliant.
Yeah, and even the traditional finance guys, like the Wall Street guys, you know, the you know, they all know that one of the fastest growing sectors for investment is digital assets. And so they are all, even the really big companies are all trying to figure out how to get their feet wet in this sector.
Yeah, it's like they were all like that with cryptocurrency, weren't they, a couple of years ago when that was really coming out. That's why it boomed up to like 20,000 Bitcoin at that time, wasn't it? Because everyone was buying it. That's when I started buying Bitcoin, just as that boom hit. It was great. I had a year off for that.
Russ, I'll tell you a funny story. I have a Facebook post that I like to share every now and then, where I say, it pretty much says, everybody, Bitcoin is $44. If you don't buy this now, you're stupid. And I bought it like $28 or something like that when they were $28.
Wow.
And I think I sold all of them at like 180 or something like that. And you know, I made quite a bit of money, and I was so happy. And then I saw it go up to $20,000, and I almost jumped off a bridge. But you know, the funny thing is, I had a very close friend, and two of us had already invested in Bitcoin, and we're telling this guy, man, you got to do it. You got to do it now. It's going up. It's going up. You got to do it. He's like, oh, I don't know. And finally, after, you know, we hound him so long, he pulls the trigger and buys a bunch of Bitcoin. Quite a bit of money. And I think it was 2 days later. I don't know if you remember this. Mt. Gox was the first, the Bitcoin exchange in Japan. Where
I know it.
They got hacked and all their Bitcoin was lost. Yeah, my friend lost all his money 2 days later after it got deposited there. And that was the last of my financial advising career. I never gave financial advice again after that. I felt so bad. But actually, that's what prompted me to just sell out of my own Bitcoin. I'm like, you know what? I don't want any part of this. The market is, at that point, could be influenced quite easily by some of the big holders. It could be manipulated quite easily. And all the exchanges out there where you were buying and selling your Bitcoins could not be trusted. There was no regulation. And so I sold out. And, you know, like I said, I made money, but nothing like what I could have.
Yeah, I had what? I think I bought it at $3,000. I didn't sell at the 10,000. I think I sold some at 15, and then sold some after in the February. I think at like 10,000 again. You know, so
Wow.
I made some decent money on it. And then
Sure.
also at that time it was it Bitcoin Gold as well come out, and then I made another like 1,000 that just for nothing. You know, because it just, and I had both. It was a period of time for me. That was. It was the only time I've ever invested. And then my trip last year or this year, when I was going around South America, I was buying Bitcoin. That doubled in price while I was buying that. So that enabled me to have a bit better money for my trip. You know, it was quite good.
Good for you.
So I quite like Bitcoin. You know what I mean? It's always been good to me.
I hate it. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It hurts my feelings.
Don't shoot me. Don't turn it off now.
Yeah, I had hundreds of those things, man. I don't even know. Yeah, it hurts when it got up to like 20,000.
Yeah. So how did you come about getting Team Quest then? Let's go back on to fighting and things, which was.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Team Quest was interesting. So I went to train. I went to Chiang Mai. To train. This was like 2012, 2013. Decided I loved it. I wanted to live there. And you know, I started training at Team Quest, and you know, there was a couple guys that owned it. I think 3 guys, and one of them had gone rogue. And you know, was like fighting with the other guys and stuff. And you know, I was kind of looking to build a gym in Bangkok. But you know, I kind of talked to one of the owners there, and they had you know, convinced me just to buy out that third partner, which I did. And you know, it was great. I had a great house on the lake. I was loving my life at the time. But you know, my wife had a green card here, and we ended up, you know, I had lunch with one of my friends who actually works covertly for the U.S. government up in Chiang Mai. And I was kind of talking about my wife's green card situation, and he's like, "Hey, Jason, you're not allowed to be outside of the United States right now." And I was like, "What? What?" We had no idea. And he's like, "Yeah, if she's on like a probationary green card, she has to stay in the country." And I was like, "Oh my God, are you serious?" He goes, "Let me set you up with our official lawyer at the embassy that we all use to do our, you know, the government visas and stuff." So I go to talk to this guy, and he goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "You've been out of the country too long, and you've got, you know, so much time before you've got to get back to the States. She's not supposed to be out right now." And you know, there was kind of some like drama with the other owners and stuff like that. I won't get into that, but you know, it just so happened that a really good guy, you know, actually one of the people I respect a lot in this world. I don't know if you know him, Mr. Dylan Fussell. He's the current.
Oh yeah,
one of the
Dylan.
Yeah, he's awesome guy, great, fantastic coach. But he was there at the time and was interested in just kind of, you know, buying my portion. So it coincided with the time that I needed to leave anyway. So you know, so I ended up selling it off to him. And you know, the gym business is not what everybody thinks it is. It was not a fun experience. I mean, the business part, and you know, it's the teaching part is what you think you're going to do. And that's great. And you love teaching and you love your students, but dealing with everything else was just such a headache, especially when I had other business stuff going on at the same time. So, you know, I was happy to cash out, and then we had to move back to the States and log time until my wife was able to leave the country again, essentially. Yeah.
So did you have a lot of problems with like corruption? Was that one of the problems, or is it just day-to-day management problems and personnel problems and you know, all those problems?
It's mostly just it was mostly issues with business partners. You know, there were some things like that. Dealing with fighters is something on a business level. It's so funny because on a personal level, I relate to the fighters, and you know, I mean, all of my best friends are fighters, but on a business level, it's an absolute just awful thing to do, to have to take care of fighters. It's terrible. It's the worst. It's the worst job in the world. You know, I had one guy, you know, we negotiated this contract, and it took a really long time, and it was really difficult. You go and you negotiate a contract, more money than the guy's ever made in his life. He's so happy. Has his first fight, doesn't train for shit, goes to have his first fight and gets knocked out. Comes back and says, I want you to get me more money. And I'm like, dude, you just signed a 3-year contract that we worked for months to get. It's already more money than you've ever made in your life. You just got knocked the fuck out. Sorry, I don't know if I could say it on your podcast.
No, it's okay. I swear all the time. Go for it.
Well, you just got knocked the fuck out, and now you want me to go and negotiate more money for you in a whole new contract. He's like, yeah.
How fucking hard did he get hit?
I'm like, dude, this is the wrong business for me. Like, I don't need to be in business with super geniuses, but I need to be in business with people that have common sense. And not to say that they all don't, but there's just a lot of entitlement. Like, you know, what can you do for me? There's a lot of irrational thinking. I've got examples for days, but yeah, I was very happy to not be dealing with pro fighters on a professional business level. You know, if you're a businessman, you're inevitably going to be the bad guy. Like, no matter what side of the fence you're on, trying to help them, if you're, you know, a promotion or a manager or, you know, whoever you are in a business sense, when you're dealing with fighters, you're going to be put in a position to be the bad guy. And I hated that, because I wanted them to do their business somewhere else and hate on somebody else and just be their friend and support their training. You know, I mean, and yeah, I was very happy to not be associated with them on a business sense anymore. And then I went to Fairtex.
So coaching's your passion. Yeah, would you say that's still your hobby, or do you say that's your job?
And it's really weird. When I had to teach class every day, like you have the same students every day, and you see them over a long period of time, I did not like it. I've done that several times in my career. I've been training for a very long time. And I didn't like it. And for me, I'm kind of a nomad. I like to work alone on the computer and go where I want, when I want, you know, and just having that time commitment becomes a little bit grueling. And I wasn't excited for it. But then the flip side of that is you see your students get better. And all of a sudden they're asking you about girlfriend problems, money problems. And, you know, they look up to you, and you're in a position to help them, especially the young guys. And between helping, you know, being a good influence in people's lives and just watching them get better at, you know, whatever I'm coaching them with in general, was rewarding beyond any amount of money or anything that I thought it could be. So I loved that part of it. Loved it. I just didn't like the commitment.
Yes. I'm not going to ask you who's your favourite student, but we'll talk about arguably your most famous one to me anyway, Stamp. Does she fit that mould? Because she seems to have gone from zero jiu-jitsu to now tapping people out in 1FC. What's she like as a student?
You want to ask me about Stamp?
Yeah. She seems like one of your... a student that I know that you've I've done a lot of work with.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Yeah. Man, I could not say enough good things about that girl. I started at Fairtex as the head BJJ coach. And right when I got there, it was right when she had gotten there.
Okay.
And she hadn't even had a fight for them yet. And you know, Mr. Wong, the owner of Fairtex, he said, hey, we got this girl who she has a Muay Thai style, a Muay Khao, like clinch and knee. And we think she might be good in MMA. He's like, can you start teaching her MMA? And, you know, I don't ever claim to be an MMA teacher or whatever. I'm a BJJ guy. But I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I started doing private lessons with her immediately before we even had the facility there. I mean, on the old mats in the like in the racquetball room, you know.
And that one at the side.
Yeah. So, started doing private lessons with her, and you know, I just thought, man, this girl she's really goofy, just silly all the time, and that's what people love. But what people don't know is that, and she wouldn't even want to tell anybody this. She is incredibly smart. She is really bright. She learns faster than just about anybody I've ever seen. I mean, she's a phenom. And you know, when I was coming up in jiu-jitsu, you know, my teacher, he said, "Look, Jason," he's like, 90% of people learn at the same rate. He said it's a function of mat time. You know, you come if everybody comes to class 5 days a week, they're all going to get better at the same rate. He goes, 5% of the people are phenoms. He goes, they're going to just shock you. And, you know, you'll tell them something once and they'll hit it 5 times that day. And they'll get better faster than anybody else. He goes, the other 5% of people are never going to get it, and you should just tell them to leave. I was like, okay. And I didn't understand at the time, but he couldn't be more right. You know, and Stamp is one of those people. I mean, you can show her something one time. She didn't, you know, she didn't speak English when she first got there. So, you know, you had to like move her body, like put your arm here, put your head here, you know, that kind of thing. But man, you could show her one time and then you could watch her try that every time she got in that position. You know, she just learns really fast. Not to mention, you know, she's the hardest worker I've probably ever seen in my entire martial arts career. I mean, she runs every day, like 6 a.m., goes and runs up a mountain sometimes, comes back, does a grueling Muay Thai class, does MMA, does wrestling, does strength and conditioning, works with a boxing coach, does jiu-jitsu. By the end of the night, that girl can't hold her head up. I mean, you know, they work her like a racehorse. And, you know, it's hard on her. But at the same time, I've seen 1,000 other people disappear when they see the kind of training that we were doing. And not only is she still there and still does it every day, she never complains, and she's always smiling.
That's, you know, one thing about, she does have some, I don't know what it is. It's one of those hard things to describe. Her personality comes through when she does a little dance and she does a little things before that, and that makes her special in what, and she's a killer as well, like, which helps, you know what I mean? But she has got something. It's a little smile. It's that dance, you know, that makes you want to watch her. And without being horrible, there's not many female fighters I want to watch. Yeah, she's one. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's another. Shevchenko's another. You know what I mean? Kat, your friend, she's another one I like to watch as well. You know what I mean? And there's not that many that you go, oh, I really want to watch that fight. Like, there was a girl who fought last night who I wanted to watch, but she got beat, you know, because she's got that personality that makes you want to watch them, like, you know.
Yeah, she is marketable. Stamp is very marketable. And, you know, the funniest part of that is every day in every class, she is a joker. I mean, it was fun for me having her in all my classes. Like, I really looked forward to it. But at the same time, I'm a little bit strict when I run classes. And, you know, I got to the point where I told her if she's late, she has to do 50 burpees. And that wasn't good enough. So then I told her if she's late, she has to run circles around the edge of the room, and everyone else is going to point and laugh at her. So we tried that for a while. And finally, I'm like, look, you live here. You live here. Why are you late? And she told me it was because her legs were short and she couldn't walk very fast. I said, oh my God. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. So the point is, she is a joker before the cameras are ever on her. I mean, that's just her personality coming out, you know. But she's, you know, here's the other part of it. She doesn't drink alcohol. She doesn't party. I mean, she's a really good kid, does exactly what she's supposed to. All she cares about is her family. She's silly and goofy, but, you know, the truth is, like, I have probably never been more proud of somebody just for working so hard. I mean, she's worked harder than anybody else that I've ever seen. So I'm really, really proud of her.
Yeah, that's another reason why I brought it up. I see that on your Facebook posts, how, you know, how pleased you are that she's doing well and all that. Yeah. Is she learning English?
She is.
Because if she wants to step, she needs to speak English, doesn't she, really? That's what you know.
Well, here's the thing. When actually One FC started their One Warrior series, and they had a tryout in Bangkok, and one of my friends works for One FC, and he was running the tryout. And I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, man, I got a girl here who's really good at Muay Thai, but she literally just started grappling. I was like, do you think that she's okay to come and give it a shot? And he's like, yeah, dude, bring her. And that's when, I don't know if you've seen like some of her promo videos and stuff, but I took her to Bangkok. Yeah, I took her to Bangkok. And I was actually sitting there talking to Rich Franklin, and I was kind of like starstruck because I'm such a big fan. And Stamp went to do pad work, and there's a bunch of girls doing, you know, striking at the same time. And after her first kick, it echoed through that gym so loud that Rich Franklin stood up. He goes, who is that? And I was with him. I was like, man, that's my girl Stamp. He goes, tell me about her. Can she grapple? And I was like, yeah. And they probably didn't know this, but we had a whole choreographed grappling routine to make her look really good. We practiced the hell out of it. I mean, she did a takedown and a guard pass, and you know, and I was her dummy, and I'm all, oh. We had the whole thing practiced pretty well, you know. But he's like, man, she's pretty good. He's like, I think you kind of gave her that takedown a little bit, Sparky. And I was like, God, little bit, a little bit. But you know, after that, she gave her a contract, and then that's when it all started for her. But anyway, to get to your point, one of the things that Rich said is, he goes, dude, she needs to learn English right away, and you know, just to increase her marketability. And I said, okay, that's fair. And so what I did, and I had actually done this even before Rich. Every time I teach her a move, like anything in Jiu Jitsu, I make her repeat it to me in English. Yep. And then at the end of every session, I would make her teach everything, all the techniques we learned, teach them back to me in English. And, you know, I was less concerned with her marketability and more concerned with us having the ability to coach her from the sideline. You know, like do this move, do that move, you know, do a triangle, stack them. I mean, just basic things like that. You have to, she had to understand what all of those meant so that we could coach her. You know? Yeah.
Because when you hear, like, I've seen Faber doing it when he's coaching, Uriah Faber, when he's coaching, he's got an interpreter, so he's saying it to the interpreter, and the interpreter's then saying it's like lost, isn't it? You've got to be like that. And they've got to pick that as well. Like.
You know, we had the funniest fight. I don't know if you saw Jenny Huang fought Mei Yamaguchi in One FC, and Jenny's boyfriend Duncan and I were in her corner, and we had to coach her in Chinese, and we had a whole plan. We had a game plan. We had worked for months, and you know, they brought Jenny in to get killed. I mean, it was Mei's hometown. It was in Tokyo. They brought her in. The girl had already beat her. There was no reason they should fight again. That Mei Yamaguchi beat the hell out of her, and then they wanted her to fight her again in Mei's hometown. And Mei had been on a win streak, and Jenny had been on like a 4-fight losing streak. And they brought us in, you know, to get killed. And again, that was a fight I tried to not advise them to take, but it's the last fight on her contract, and her contract would have expired. So she's like, Jason, if I don't take this fight, then I'm done with ONE FC. I'm like, damn. So they put us in a position where we didn't have a choice. So we took the fight, and we go over there, and I'm coaching, and she's not doing. She did pretty good, about 80%, but she's not doing everything that we told her to do.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to her boyfriend, and he's trying to translate to Chinese to tell her what to do, and she's not doing it. And I'm freaking out, and I'm like, why the fuck is she not doing this? Why is she not doing this? And he starts yelling at her in Chinese. I'm like, are you saying the same thing I'm saying? Are you telling her something different? I grab this guy's head, and I start screaming into his ear. I'm like, tell her to do this. And he's trying to yell at her in Chinese. And I'm like, man, why is she not doing this? I'm like, she's either not listening to you or you're not listening to me. And, man, they had me on camera, and I'm grabbing the guy's head, just screaming in his ear, telling her what to do. And some of the guys that the ONE FC executives, they actually came over and they grabbed me. They're like, dude, we can hear you on TV swearing really loud and screaming in this guy's ear. They're like, can you sit down and not be so loud? I was like, sorry. My bad.
How did she get on in that fight?
Excuse me?
I never. How did she get on in that fight?
Oh, well, like I said, she was brought in to get slaughtered. And we knew exactly what her opponent was going to do. We had a training camp for 6 weeks where I made all the other girls emulate her opponent, and we just put a new, fresh girl on her in that same style again and again and again. And she, like I said, she implemented about 80% of our plan. And 2 or 3 times she made mistakes. She did exactly what we had trained for weeks not to do. And I think Mei Yamaguchi got 1 takedown because of it. And she won a very close fight. So my girl lost the decision, but there was probably, I'm not exaggerating, 20,000 comments online saying that everybody thought she won. So, I mean, everyone was like, oh, the fight was rigged. It was rigged for the Japanese girl. It was a setup, like that kind of stuff. I don't think so. I mean, it was close enough that, I can see how the other girl won. So I wasn't really upset about the decision. But what shocked most people is that it was a razor thin decision. And we were brought in to get murdered. And I wasn't going to let that happen.
Have you found it working with ONE and their weight cutting as well? Because there seems... I'm still not 100% sure how the weight cutting works, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Yeah.
It's the best system in the world. I'm very honest when it comes to ONE Championship. They got a lot of haters, and a lot of people will tell you all the bad stuff that they do, just like the UFC. And I'm very honest in my assessment of them. Even though I have a lot of friends that work there, there's things that they do really well and things that I think are complete bullshit. And weight cutting and their weight cutting system is by far the best in the world. It's not perfect, but there's nothing that exists that's better. And the way that they do it is you have to make both at the same time, make weight and pass hydration at the same time twice before your fight. So you can't just do it one day and then eat a lot. So let's say you fight on Friday. You have to pass weight and hydration together on Wednesday and Thursday. And so you've got to do both of them. So, people still dehydrate themselves. Sure. You've got people online saying, "Oh, I saw a guy running in a sauna suit." Yeah, of course they do. I mean, that's okay, if you're a UFC fighter and you might cut 15 pounds of water. If you're a ONE FC fighter, you might cut 5 pounds of water, and you can still pass the hydration. They're not saying you can't cut weight. They're saying you can't cut weight severely. And so your hydration just has to be at a certain level. So you could let's say you had 20 pounds. Okay, you would diet 15 and cut 5 in water and probably still pass hydration, but that's safe. That's safe. The UFC fighters, they would literally, cut 50, diet 5 and cut 15 in the sauna. And then by the time the fight happens, the fluid around your brain is the last thing that rehydrates. And so it actually it leads itself to long-term brain damage fighting when you had just been dehydrated 24 hours earlier. With 1FC, if you fail on the first two, so if your fight's on Friday, you do it Wednesday and you do it Thursday. If you pass both of them, you're done. If you fail one but pass the other one, then you have one more chance on fight day. So very early on fight morning, they'll say, okay, this is your last chance. And if you don't make both weight and hydration at the same time on that day, then the fight's off. Or the opponent can take part of your purse. You know, they kind of renegotiated at that point, but you officially did not make weight. Anyway, it's not perfect, but it's the best system out there. Yeah,
because you've trained at combat group, haven't you? And you know what happened with Cristiano.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know
that was a tragedy.
That was a big thing about, you know, I had a lot of respect for him. He helped me a lot. He was really good. You know, and that was, he was cutting loads of weight before that. You know what I mean? Before the fight, and you know, when he fought, you know, he wasn't afraid to take a punch as well, like, you know, and that was weight cutting at the extreme, you know. So like, it's something that scares me. A fighter's going down too low. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he was
absolutely.
People say, why don't you go down to bantamweight? He's like, I could make the weight, but I couldn't fight it. You know what I mean? And he puts on 10 kilos, so 2.2, 22 pounds the day after. You know what I mean? So he'll weigh in and then he'll put back on 22 pounds the next day, you know, when he fights.
Wow.
So it's like, you know, how much water is he cutting out? You know what I mean? So,
yeah. I mean, that is so dangerous. And me, myself, I've suffered from a brain injury before. And I don't play around with that stuff. You know, even Stamp, like you know, if she has a fight and gets hit in the head a little bit, I mean, I would put her off sparring for 45 days, you know, just little things like that. But the fact that these guys don't have to cut a lot of water weight to fight, you know, it's still a dangerous sport or whatever, but I think it's doing wonders to reduce the long-term effects of fighting on a dehydrated brain. I don't think we really know what those effects are yet, and you know, especially for the young fighters and stuff, I'm always very concerned about that. But I'll tell you a funny story. I was with Stamp, and she had to weigh in twice, you know, just like everybody does, and she passed the first one easy. And then the next day, I see her on the treadmill just going, and I'm like, "What are you doing? You're already at weight. What are you doing?" And she starts laughing. She goes, "I eat buffet last night." I'm like, "You dumbass!" I'm like, "You made weight once, and all you gotta do is make weight again the next day, and you just go and eat a buffet." And she's like, this big shit-eating smile, and I was like, "Oh God!" So she basically had to cut weight again. Oh, and one time I take her to a fight in Singapore, and it was before like her first big fight, you know, and it's 9 or 10 o'clock, and you know, I kind of walked her to her hotel room. I was like, "Okay, good night, whatever. I'll see you this time tomorrow morning. We have to, you know, do pictures and this and that and the whole schedule that they had for us." And it wasn't until later that she's like, "Oh, you remember when we go to Singapore?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "After you take me to my room and then you go to bed?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "I went to 7-Eleven and I buy a lot of chocolate and I eat it all." And I'm like, "You little shit. I can't believe you did that." Sneaks out, goes to 7-Eleven and eats a bunch of chocolate the night before her fight. Yeah, managing her was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was in a gym. I was in a gym the other day, and I'm not going to say his name. Like he missed weight, and so I believe he was eating ice cream on the airplane to Fight Island. And then
he missed weight.
Yeah. I'm teasing him about that, so I'm not 100% sure if he actually did it or not. But the other lads are teasing him about that. So I don't know. It's not good if that's it. I don't think he won his fight either. So
okay.
Won't go down too well with the UFC, will it? So, can you see other people weigh in with one? That was a thing that they've leveled it.
You know, here's one good thing about One Championship is that they listen to people that are complaining. And so for a while they said, "Oh, they have secret weigh-ins and we don't know if they really made weight. Well, I was actually at many of those secret weigh-ins, and everybody there can see them. They're not private or anything. They just weren't televised like the UFCs are. And so it became like a conspiracy that like they're hiding people's weight or something like that, or people are making weight and, you know, people are missing weight and they're letting them fight anyway. It just couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I was personally in and watching people make weight, and then I would go online and see people say that it was a scam and a fraud and all of these things. And so sure as shit, next time I go to ONE FC, next time I take the fighters and we go to make weight, they got cameras and they're live streaming the weigh-in. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, look, we just didn't think anybody really wanted to watch this, but okay, fair enough. If people are going to accuse us of like, you know, doing something shady, then we'll just live stream it. And so they did. They go on Facebook Live for like 4 hours for the whole time. And people, you know, there's a window in the fighters have when they can come in and try to make weight or whatever. And so, and so they show the weights and they show the hydration results and everything.
Because I've seen some weigh-ins and I'm like, not ONE FC, this is UFC, this one. And I'm like, is that legit? Because the guy's doing that, then he gets it, he shouts it, and he bam, smashes it down straight away to 0. And it's like, why have you banged that down so quick? You know what I mean? If it's on weight, why did you need to move that so quick? Like, it was like, you know, it's like bang on, boom, and he's knocked it off the weight straight away. It's like, that looks a bit dodgy to me.
I don't know. I mean, the good thing about the UFC is that all the people that are doing that are not employed by the UFC. They're the athletic commission. And you could argue that it's possible that the UFC has influence over them, but the UFC is not self-regulating in the States. And so, you know, that's one of the things, actually, it's one of the biggest reasons why they grew the way that they did, because they, you know, everybody else was running away from regulation at that time. And the UFC ran right to the regulators and said, help us be legal, help us do everything legit, work with us, let's make this a real sport, and you guys can regulate it. And that's what they did. So the UFC, I mean, I know for a fact the way that it works in the States anyway, they don't have a whole lot of choice over judges, judging, referees, the guys checking weight, like all that kind of stuff. They purposely, as you know, a business directive, they said, look, and you know who drove the whole initiative was gamblers. Gamblers, they drive sports a lot, especially in Vegas. Yeah. And they didn't have confidence to bet on fights that were self-regulated. And so, you know, once the UFC got the state athletic commissions on board to be a third-party regulator, then that's when the gambling really took off, because people could trust that the results were objective and not influenced. But, you know, those guys that check weight and stuff like that, I don't think they're doing anything shady. I think they just, you know, they've used that scale a million times that day and they just don't give a shit anymore. It's like, okay, you're good.
Yeah, possibly. It doesn't look good that you fire it off back to 0 as quick as you can. It's like,
I mean, that's kind of funny. I haven't noticed that, but yeah, I guess that's a little questionable, but I don't think it's anything shady. Yeah.
Do you see it as a sport or a fight? What do you see it as a sport or a fight? MMA.
One more time, please.
Do you see MMA as a sport or a fight?
Oh, it's a sport for sure. You know, and I'll tell you what's really interesting that's happening right now. Before, maybe, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, early 2000s, they were fighters. You know, they were guys that wanted to fight. And then the fighters decided to train. Okay, fair enough. But especially like in the States, all of the people that were naturally gifted athletes were playing basketball, American football. They were going into sports that had a career path that could earn money. You know, there was nobody that was an elite athlete who was choosing to be a fighter. And, you know, over time, that has changed now that MMA has become more of a sport. There's more money involved. There's more fame, glamour, promotion, marketing activities, those things. So now what we see is a lot of the younger guys who are just athletically gifted are starting to choose to go into fighting as opposed to, maybe 20 years ago, they would have gone into other sports. And that's even something that we see a lot in jiu-jitsu. Like, I just had this conversation the other day with somebody. Coming up, we're always taught, technique is everything. Technique is everything. It's all about your technique and the technique that and technique beats strength and all of these things. But, okay, 20 years ago, the guys that were winning jiu-jitsu world championships were guys that looked like Hoist Gracie.
Yep.
Okay, now the guys that are winning jiu-jitsu world championships, they are some of the most incredibly athletically gifted athletes on the universe. Six packs, just monster specimens of human beings. I mean, look at these guys. And, when you get to black belt now, everybody knows the same techniques. I mean, there's subtle differences, and maybe this technique is a little better than this one, but if you're not improving your athleticism now, you can't compete anymore. And, back in the day, at least, from my teacher and their teachers, that was sort of shunned a little bit. Like, we don't need to be athletic because our technique is better. Well, I mean, that sort of gets thrown out the window once the sport matures and everybody knows the techniques. And now the people that are the athletic phenoms are coming in and learning the same techniques as you.
Look at that, Nick Rod.
It's really interesting shift that's happened in the UFC. I mean, you see some of the young guys, there's even guys now that used to play in the NFL and pro football. Now they're in the UFC. These incredibly gifted athletes are now choosing to be fighters. So it's much more of a sport than it ever was before. And it's happening in sport, jiu-jitsu, and in MMA, kind of at the same time.
Yeah, that Nick Rod, who's fighting out of Danaher squad.
Yeah, I mean, look at that guy.
That long, but he's smashing people, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to tell me that your technique is so much better that you're going to beat that guy? No.
No.
I mean, you can't compete. You can't compete at that level without being an athlete anymore.
Like Gordon Ryan, he's got both, doesn't he? Do you
does.
reckon he's the best in the world at the moment?
Do I reckon he's the what?
Do you reckon he's the best in the world at the moment? No, especially
100%.
no-gi.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. Okay, he's mostly a no-gi guy. I wouldn't say that he's got the best jiu-jitsu in the world. I would say that he's the best no-gi competitor, no-gi grappling competitor probably ever at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Marcelo?
Marcelo Garcia?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, this is interesting. He's one of the guys that defied everything I just told you. He's one of those guys that was fighting, even back in his day, these athletic monsters. And his technique is just there's so much of a gap with him that he was able to overcome it for almost everybody. It's hard to say if he would still be able to do that or not in the current landscape. But, yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the best competitors ever. And he was an exception to exactly what I just told you. I mean, his technique and his game and he's just so wise and so clever with the game and the rules and momentum and timing and things like that he was able to overcome a lot of people that were way more athletically gifted than he was.
I've watched a few things of his and watched him fight, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
The way he gets to the backs, the way he chokes people out, it's just so fluid, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
I mean, he's definitely an exception to what I just told you. But I mean, even think about this. Even if you had taken a guy like that and put him in, I mean, he didn't even lift weights. He didn't do strength and conditioning or anything. All he ever did was just train more jiu-jitsu. And, had you taken a guy like that and put him in some elite S&C program and turned him into a six-pack, athletic freak, he probably even would have gone to another level that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah. Who's your, like, Mount Rushmore of jiu-jitsu players?
Man, that's really hard to say. That's really, really, really hard to say. I mean, there's a handful of guys that I just I just love for different reasons.
Uh-huh.
I love the Mendez brothers.
Yep.
You know, I love watching them because they came. It's hard to say that anybody like invented anything in jiu-jitsu because it's been around for so long. People have done this shit forever, but people get really good at certain areas and are able to sort of exploit that against other people. But man, they came in, athletic freaks, very athletically gifted, and with a different approach to the game, different style. I used to just love watching those guys compete. It's hard to say who was my Mount Rushmore. I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. I mean, Roger Gracie is one of the best, competitors ever. I used to love watching him because he never really used any moves that we didn't see in beginner class. I mean, I had a beginner class, and almost everything he did was in the beginner class, but he was just so good at it. I spent a long time training with two black belts who are black belts from Hickson Gracie, and they're brothers, and now they both have schools in Chicago, and they're like 4th and 5th degree black belts directly from Hickson. And man, those guys opened my eyes up to just a completely different game. Every class they spend 30 minutes doing like gymnastics and breathing and yoga and all of this stuff that's, they do these movement drills. I mean, they were doing movement before everyone made fun of Conor McGregor for having a movement coach, and these guys are tiny. They're like 130 pounds. And I remember one of them tapped me out just from pressure, just from smashing the shit out of me. Yeah. They're tiny guys. And then he yelled at me for being a pussy for it. Man, I felt so bad. Now I smashed the shit out of my students. I got better at it. I hope they're proud of me. But I really look up to people who are doing something different. Like these guys, they've learned. I mean, they've learned to just dominate massive black belts with movement. They just move better than everybody. The Mendez brothers brought new skills to competitive jiu-jitsu. Roger Gracie won everything with basics. I really look up to those guys that are doing something a little bit different, have a different approach than other people do.
Are you into all the leg lock game now?
No, I'm not. And, I'll be completely transparent about that. I should be much better at that than I am. Okay. I came up in like a traditional school, and my teacher he did quite a bit of leg locks, more than I see in other places. But it kind of stopped for me one day when I had a giant guy go to do a toe hold on me, and before I could even tap, my foot was snap, just dangling. I couldn't walk for almost 3 months. And I just remember thinking, man, he didn't try to hurt me. Like here's the difference. On one side, you have competition, whether it's no-gi, gi, MMA fighters, whatever. On the other side, you have 90% of the students in jiu-jitsu schools around the world who are hobbyists. They're not there to fight. They're not there to compete. My school here is filled with 30 to 50-year-old dudes that just wanted some exercise, and they think it's pretty cool. If you break one of their foot, they can't go to their job. They can't feed their family, and they're never coming back. They're never coming back to jiu-jitsu. And so, regarding the leg lock game, if you're an active competitor and you want to compete, or if you want to fight even in MMA to some degree, I think you have an obligation to train and understand all of those things and to train in an environment where they're being used. However, I don't think it's really appropriate for most schools out there. I mean, it's just, people will say this is cliche, but it's actually, there's a lot of truth to it. Even when you heel hook somebody, it doesn't really hurt until their LCL snaps and they need reconstructive knee surgery. And it's like, man, did I need to do that to you to win? You know, if you and I are friends and we go to the mat just to have a friendly roll and I snap your LCL, I mean, there's danger in everything, but the thing about leg locks is sometimes there's no pain until there's severe damage. And that's why they're banned in a lot of places. People will turn the wrong way. If I put you in a heel hook and you roll the wrong way, you break your own knee. You know, they're just, I guess the word is they're dangerous. And in most jiu-jitsu schools, they're there to serve students who are hobbyists. And, you know, it's not to say that they shouldn't be teaching them leg locks, but it's hard to argue that they should be fighting, sparring 100% every day with heel hooks. I mean, you're going to end up with a very small school. I'll just put it that way. You'll end up, half of your students will be gone. And then it becomes financial. So it's hard to say. Me personally, I understand the value of leg locks. I understand that the leg lock game is paramount if you want to be an active competitor in today's landscape. You know, I myself I'm okay. I'm not amazing. You know, and you know, I probably should know more than I do.
I remember in Bangkok we were there, and there was two lads who were blue belts at about the same level, and one of them blew the other guy's knee out. You know. Yeah. So
doing what?
It's easy to. I can't remember what it was like because it was happening to the side of me. I just remember it. So I can't see. I don't remember seeing the move, but he done something on his leg. And, you know, I remember my old coach at Combat Group, way before you went there. A lot of times we'd get there and he'd just say, all right, let's see what you've got. And then he'd just end up tapping me out with everything. You know what I mean? Because we'd just roll. My defense started to get a lot better. But, you know, my attacks aren't so good. You know, because me and him had a good relationship. You know, we were like friends as well. So I'd go there and he'd know other students. So I'd be like, all right, let's go, let's roll, see what you got. And then he'd just go through all the different moves of tapping me out. You know what I mean? It was about an hour. So,
that's fun though.
Yeah, we'd be taking the piss out of each other, so it was good. You know what I mean? I love that. Like, I remember training with some Japanese guy, and it was super serious, and he's getting angry because I touched it, and it's like, oh man. And then the next time I rolled it with, like, you know, Lee Livingston, and he's just taking the piss out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about jiu-jitsu when it's like that. You know, you're having some fun while you're doing it. You know.
Yeah. You know, it's really interesting that you say that because, in my opinion, like the vibe and the energy in the room is everything. And, you know, I've been to schools where you're not allowed to talk, you know, where you've got to bow 4 times before you get on the mat, you know, where, you know, nobody's allowed to laugh. You know, I've been to schools where they line you up and the instructor will talk for 40 minutes, like lecture people for 40 minutes while everyone's standing in a line. You know, the other side of that is I've been to schools where people just come and go when they want. I've been to schools where everybody's high. I've been to schools where, like, you know, I've been to schools where they just rock out Bob Marley for 3 hours and people just roll together and then smoke a joint. You know, I've been to schools where, I mean, my instructor, his nickname was Hostile. He was a little bit of a lunatic, and he kind of turned us all mean. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, my personal recipe for a class is there has to be a couple components. Every class that I teach, I want everybody to leave tired. I want them to all feel like they got a hell of a workout. I want them all to walk away learning some move or some technique that they're like on the way home going, you know, like something, like I want them to learn something important or something cool every time. And then the third and the most overlooked is I want them to love to be there. I joke with people. I make fun of them. I bully the shit out of people. I just, you know, I in a nice way, in a fun way, you know. I make fun of my students. We all laugh, you know. I mean, I'm not super serious. You know, it's like you have to have a balance. You got to work hard. You got to learn some cool shit. and you got to have fun. At the end of the day, if people aren't having fun and they don't enjoy being there, they're not going to have that fire in their belly to keep coming back and getting better.
Why would you? You wouldn't want to, would you? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you can see on all those different kinds of schools that I told you that I've been to, the students that are there for long term, some students want like a traditional martial art where they got to bow all the time and there's a lot of rules. Other students, they like that environment where they're, you know, smoking a joint together and getting drunk together and then training for 2 hours of music. I'm kind of right in the middle, you know, like I respect my traditions, but it, you know, I want everybody to have fun. I want them to work their ass off and do some cool shit. That's it.
Yeah, I'm a teacher, so normally for English now, and that's my same thing. I want a certain amount of respect of people. You know what I mean? I don't bow to me or anything like that, but you know, I want a certain amount of respect while I'm teaching. But I want it to be a laugh. I want it to have fun, because otherwise they don't want to do it again, and you know, you're just boring then, aren't you? You know what I mean? And it's no fun. That Japanese guy, I left halfway through the lesson, so I can't be doing staying here, like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna end up fighting with you, you know, properly. So it's like, you know, I can't. I'm not having people speak to me like that. Like, I'm a grown man.
That's no good.
No, but he was like that with loads of people. He had a problem where.
Well, that's a recipe to get rid of your students, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I want to set it up so that people want to be there. They want to come back. It surprised me, but one of the most rewarding things I've ever seen is just watching people get better that you taught. And, you know, I mean, it's like watching your work pay off in some way. It's incredibly rewarding. Yeah,
there is so much special about it. Like from my last job, I've had like students writing me letters and saying, like, you know, my confidence level has gone up and everything, which is one of the big things for me. You know, that their confidence. You know, and I feel so good about that. It's like, I've put there. You know what I mean? That they've took the time as well to write that. It was massive for me. You know, so it's really cool.
That's the kind of stuff that makes it worth it. You know.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I want to go back there. You know what I mean, to that place. And I only work 3 days a week, which is also quite good. You know.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So it's brilliant there. Well, you mentioned hostile, and you know, I know you passed and everything, and it was big on the whole community. Was it him who got you to go to Thailand? Really?
Yeah, it was. So so just, you know, for anybody listening, my first teacher was Mauricio Zingano, and his nickname was Hostile, and he was, you know, like a phenomenal businessman, phenomenal BJJ guy, crazy fighter. Amazing MMA fighter, but he was mean as shit. And you know, he's one of the first. He's the one that got me to go to Thailand. He used to do a seminar at Tiger Muay Thai before they even had Jiu Jitsu. He would do seminars there. You know, he would be like a guest coach there every summer for a couple of years. Yeah, he did that. And one time he was getting ready to leave. Him and his wife, you know, Kat Zingano, obviously.
Yep.
And they were going to go to Thailand, and they're like, "Hey, Sparky," they're like, "Dude, we're going to Thailand. Why don't you come with us? We're going to be there for 6 weeks." And I was like, "Oh, I could never do that," you know. They're like, "Dude, you work on the internet. They got Wi-Fi. It's like, why can't you just work from there and then come hang out with us?" And I was like, yeah. All right, cool, let's go. Whatever. I didn't know anything about Thailand, but then I never wanted to leave. So yeah, oh man, I came with them the first time, and listen to this. Their little boy, they had a little boy who was like 4 years old at the time, and he loved me. I mean, to this day, I love that kid. You know, he's such a great kid, and he wanted to ride with me on my motorbike, and I had never driven a motorbike before. It was my first time in Thailand, and you know, my teacher was mean. I'm like, something happened to this kid. He's gonna kill me, like for real. And sure as shit, I mean, I didn't have a phone or anything. I didn't have Google Maps. Sure as shit, I get lost, get separated from the group, and I got this 4-year-old on the front of my motorbike. I am panicked, man. I'm almost crying. I'm like, oh God, Mauricio, he's gonna kill me. he's going to fucking kill me. He's going to take the kid. When they find me, they're going to kill me. I mean, I just knew I was in deep shit, you know? And the kid's name is Braden. And I'm like, hey, Braden. I'm like, man, he's like, where's mommy and daddy? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I was like, I'm just going to tell you, I don't know where we're at. He goes, well, I know where we're at. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, go that way. I'm like, okay, so I go that way. He goes, turn right. We turn right. He goes, yeah, turn left. Turn left. Takes me right back to the hotel where they're at. Wow. And I was like, man, that little guy just saved my life. He had no idea. And Mauricio's standing there. He's like, bro, where the fuck were you? And I'm like, oh, you know, we just got stuck behind some traffic, and Braden showed me the way home. He's like, they couldn't believe it. But yeah, that little kid, he knew exactly. I mean, that was the island of Phuket. I mean, we were far away. He knew exactly where to go, and he had just gotten there. But yeah, he saved my life.
What a memory.
I would have gotten killed.
And so what did you do? Go back and forwards a few times and then just end up staying there, or?
Yeah. You know, I went for that 6 weeks with them, and I spent the whole time training with them at Tiger. And then I went home, and it was like, I was like, man, how long can I stay in Thailand? So I go and I just Google. It's like, oh, Americans at that time can get a 3-month visa. I'm like, sweet. I went home. I think the same week I got home, I booked another 3-month trip. And so then I went for 3 months. And when I was there that time, I was like, man, I'm not going back. So I told my sister, I'm like, hey, take everything in my house and sell it. I was like, you can have I had a brand new car. I'm like, you can have my car. I just gave it to her. I'm like, take everything in my house, sell it, you know, just get rid of it. I don't even care, whatever. And so we liquidated my whole house, sold the house and everything. And I just stayed over there.
Mm-hmm. So when was that?
2012.
2012. So, okay.
I think so, yeah.
I've been there 11, 12 years in Thailand now.
Oh, okay. And then it was like 2014 when Mauricio died, you know, and that was pretty tough.
Yeah, that had an effect on the whole community, didn't it? You know, there's a few people where it's like him, Robert Follis, where people still talk, and you know what I mean? Like, it shows what sort of person they were.
Yeah. That was tough, man. I was a brown belt at the time, and I had a plane ticket to go back to his house to the States because he wanted to give me my black belt. And my plane ticket, I was flying out on like Saturday or something, and it was like a Tuesday when my friend hit me up, and he's like, dude, Mauricio's dead. I'm like, oh, fuck. So, yeah, I had to change my ticket to go home immediately that day.
Yeah, man, that must have been tough, especially
it was awful. I mean, he was my best friend too. You know, I mean, it was weird. He's one of those guys where he either really loves you or really hated you. And you know, I mean, I remember he loved me, and I remember you know, I lived alone, and I remember being sick, and I hear a knock on the door, and I go open the door, and it's Mauricio. And he's got a grocery bag and a sleeping bag. I'm like, man, what are you doing? He goes, bro, I heard you're sick. You live alone. He goes, I'm going to make soup, and I'm going to sleep here and take care of you. I'm like, fuck.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he was that kind of guy. He would do anything for you if he loved you. But the other side of that is I saw him murder quite a few people. Yeah.
You know, and people like that, you normally know where you stand with them, don't you?
Yeah, you know everybody knew exactly where they standed. I mean, sometimes he wouldn't like people that were in the gym, and he would walk around and he would take like his top students and he would kind of whisper. He's like, green light, green light. And I'm like, I'm a nice guy. I'm like, man, I don't really want to. He's like, fucking do it. I'm like, all right. And then you just got to kill people, you know? If you don't like them, you got to kill them.
So what was it that made you love Thailand?
Huh?
What was it that made you love Thailand so much?
Man, it was a couple of things. Like, it was the fact that everybody was smiling, and there didn't seem to be like that day to day, you know, like
I live out, you know, kind of not, I shouldn't say Chicago, but I live like a couple hours out of the city. And, you know, even around here, it's like factory land and everybody's just busy working and going home. And I kind of enjoyed the fact that everywhere I go, people were smiling at me.
Yeah.
You know, I like the weather. I mean, the weather outside Chicago is like the worst in the world. It sucks in the summer and it sucks in the winter. You know, it's awful. You know, there was a lot of pretty girls there. I mean, we all know that. I love the food. I love Thai food. I love healthy food.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, khao man gai.
Khao man gai?
Khao man gai or khao khao mu is my favorite. And man, my wife makes the best khao man gai I ever had in my life. Yeah, oh God, I'm so happy.
Just so people know, it's like an oily rice with chicken, isn't it?
Kind of. I wouldn't even say oily. It's just cooked with the rice itself is cooked with chicken broth, so it's like chicken rice. And then it's cooked with ginger and garlic. And then there's boiled chicken in it, and then they make a sauce that also has ginger and garlic.
Okay.
But it's super healthy, super delicious. Really cheap in Thailand, but yeah, to answer your question, I like Thailand because the training was good, the food was good, and the women were pretty, the weather was good. Yeah, it was, all of those things are better than where I'm at currently.
That's what decreases me as well. You what your wife says to you, man, what you put on Facebook, it's like a soap opera. I'm reading it, it's like
yeah.
Some of the things like, what do you mind me saying that she's on about cutting bits off you the other day?
Well, I'll put some context to that. A lot of people find that funny, and that's kind of why I posted. Like, you know, it's pretty funny what comes out of her mouth. But you know what it is I'm a shit talker. I tease. I mean, I tease my friends. I bully people. I never stop talking. And my wife is really conservative, really quiet, really private, really shy. Just really like we walk into somewhere, I'm talking to everybody and everybody can hear me, and my wife sits in the corner like this, you know. I mean, she's just, we're really opposites in that way. And I just tease her and I tease her and I tease her to the point where she just can't take it anymore. And she just snaps and she tries to like talk shit back to me. And, you know, something is either like she's, you know, she doesn't have a lot of experience, you know, making fun of people, talking shit. And between her trying to come up with something to say and then her translating it to English, it always comes out really funny. And man, I remember sometimes like I just tease her just to see what she'll say, you know, whatever's going to come out of her mouth. It is so funny, man. And yeah, that's why I do it. And you know, she's not mean or ill-spirited or anything like that, but I just push her past the breaking point so I can laugh at whatever she's going to say.
I didn't realize it was that. I thought it was that she was just taking the piss out of you, really, more than anything. You know what I mean?
Well,
just
she's learning to talk back, you know, and I love it, and it's so funny. But you know, it takes a lot to push her past the edge, and you know, I'm the guy that's sitting there like poking her and pinching her and just fucking with her and giving her a hard time, and I just tease her all the time, and she just gets to the point where she can't take it anymore. Yeah, so that's what it is.
Well, honest, if anyone's watching, get on his Facebook. It's worth it just for that, man. It's just hilarious. I'm sat there laughing. I see the one where she says she's going to cut parts of you off the other day, which is a very Thai woman thing to say, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It is. And you know, one day. Sorry, go ahead.
That happens a lot not a lot, but it happens quite often.
It does, and that's why it's frightening.
Yeah.
You know, one day I went out with my my boss. And, you know, and I had a little too much to drink, and I had some of the Muay Thai fighters brought me home, and they called. I was sleeping in the back of the car, and they called my wife, and they're like, "Hey, we got your husband here, and he had too much to drink. Where do you live? We have to bring him home. The boss told us to bring him home." And my wife, you know, she told him to just throw me in the grass on the side of the road. And they're like, oh no, we can't do that. The boss will be so mad. The owner of Fairtex, they're like, he told us to make sure he gets home. And she's like, I don't care, just throw him out of the side of the road. I was like, man. Finally, they found my condo and helped me inside. But they're like, yeah, man, your wife told us to just push you out of the car. Like, great.
Where do you like the most in Thailand?
Where do I like most?
Yeah.
Chiang Mai. Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai?
Oh, 1,000%. And Bangkok would be second. I hated Phuket. Hated every minute I spent in Phuket. I hated it. Just couldn't stand it. Truthfully, I don't like Pattaya at all. It's not my kind of city. I'm really, contrary to my last story, I'm not into that kind of scene or anything, it's not my thing. I love Fairtex, and that's the only reason why I was there. And I would live there again because of Fairtex, but the city itself was just kind of trash. I loved Chiang Mai. The people were more friendly. The locals were more friendly, and I don't know. I have much deeper friendships with locals there. There's like a lot of healthy cafes, good places, to eat, good coffee. It's a little bit slower, of a pace and things like that. So I really like Chiang Mai. And second would be Bangkok. And I only say Bangkok because I like to eat, And Bangkok is, oh God, I love to eat. And Bangkok is one of the best food cities in the world. I mean, there's just so much food there. I mean, I could live there for 10 years and never eat at all the places I wanted to.
Yeah, I live in Pattaya, but when people say to me, "What's it like?" It's like shithole, but it's cheap.
Yeah, well, even Chiang Mai, it's much nicer and much cheaper, much cheaper.
So I lived in Chiang Mai for a couple of months, about 3 months, I think, 3-4 months.
Yeah, so, that's just more. It's a style thing for me. That's just more my style. Yeah,
I like it up in Chiang Mai. Phuket, I lived quite a bit away from the city centre of Phuket, if you know what I mean. So it wasn't so bad. I can't remember what it was called now. So yeah, it wasn't that bad there. The prices were all right as well, So, but
yeah, I didn't like Phuket. I mean, it was a pretty place, but I felt like I wasn't in Thailand almost. There were so many expats and tourists and things, like on a day-to-day basis. I wasn't hanging out with Thai people, I mean, the people I was surrounded by, they weren't Thais. They were all like, they were all expats from somewhere else living there and training and stuff. And it's like, well, I don't know. It wasn't an authentic Thai experience for me, I guess. I'm not really a beach kind of guy. So, that wasn't it. But once I moved up to Chiang Mai, I instantly, I had a ton of Thai friends, like local people. They live there, they work there, and they're not trying to, scam you out of anything or get you to pay for anything. I mean, they're just legitimate, true friendships. And I really, really appreciated that. It's hard to find that in any city in the world, really, where there's a lot of tourists. I mean, even, you go to Mexico, I mean, you're not, in the tourist areas, you're not going to have real friendships with people. They just want your money. So, I mean, that's the other reason why I really did not like Phuket. Like everyone, my entire crowd that I was surrounded with were not Thais.
Yeah, I've just got back from spending time in South America, and I fell in love with Colombia. It was just,
I've heard,
just the people there are spectacular. You know what I mean? And it's beautiful, but even like taxis, I could go, how much is it? And they'd go, yeah, I'll take that, because I haven't got change, I won't take all of it. Where the taxis take less than they should do because you haven't got the right change. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen in many places, and it's pretty. Maybe I got overcharged somewhere, but I don't think I did. You know what I mean?
That's really, really good to know.
Yeah, but I was stunning. I'd like to buy a place there if I can. 6 months in Thailand and 6 months in Colombia. That'd be spot on for me.
Oh, that'd be perfect, huh?
Yeah, we'll see though. Yeah. It's only an idea at the moment. I've got the place in Thailand, but we'll see about Colombia next.
Are you going to try to go back to Thailand? Like, when are you going to try to go back to Thailand is a better question.
As soon as I can. I'm in Kenya now because I don't like being in the UK. So, because I was stuck in Peru and I wasn't sure how long I was going to be stuck in Peru for because of COVID. So I flew back to the UK and then it was like, been here for 6 weeks. It's doing me head in now. I'll fly over to Kenya, and then because I can go there. Then I'm just waiting now for China or Thailand to open, whichever opens first. I will go there because I'll either work in China or I'll go back to my place in Thailand, which is cheaper to live than paying for an Airbnb.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good for you.
But, yeah, I like it. I don't like being back in the UK. It's not that good.
Yeah, it sounds like you got the same thing going on that I do.
Yeah. So, I think there's certain people that just have that, they like to, it just feels freer for me, I don't know about you. So, yeah. Do you still speak to Kat? You still close? Because she's got a fight coming up, hasn't she? Do you still train at that gym? You all right for time?
No, I'm good. I got a little time.
Okay.
Yeah, she actually came over to Fairtex. And they filmed a whole thing for ESPN there with me.
Yep.
She had a series on ESPN Plus called Religion of Sport, and man, she asked me if they could come and film there. I'm like, yeah. They showed up with like 20 people. It's like a whole crew, and it aired on ESPN. And the funny thing is, like, the original one was like an hour. And when it aired, it was only like 25 minutes or something like that. So they cut out like a whole bunch of it, but it was still pretty good, really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I haven't watched that because I don't get ESPN Plus. I remember you posting about it.
Man, it was good. It was really good, and I felt so bad. I made her cry on camera, and I talked to the producer. I'm like, man, are you guys gonna show that? Like, I'm gonna feel like a dick. And, they wanted me to like roll with her, and man, she's good. She you don't think you're rolling with some dainty little girl. I mean, she's coming to kill you most of the time, and, I'm like, well, do you want her to look good for the camera, or do you want me to beat her up? And they're like, oh no, just beat her up. And I'm like, all right, man, she came in on me, and I think I like choked her or something. And I didn't know this, but they had been like slowly chipping away at her in interviews emotionally about everything that happened, everything that she had been through. And for whatever reason, it kind of came out. She starts crying. And I'm like, oh, God, I just choked a girl on camera, and now she's crying. And I was like, I can't wait till they air that. I'm going to be the guy that choked her and made her cry. I felt so bad. And, she's like, oh, it's not your fault. It was some other stuff or whatever. But they ended up editing it like really, really nicely.
Okay.
But I do highly encourage you to watch it. If, she came over and, talked about a lot of the stuff that she's been through. So it was really, really good. Really, really well done. I think it got nominated for an Emmy.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's like going to win some big time awards because it was just a really great series in general.
How much were you in that? Did you have a speaking part? In that? Yeah,
I mean, she came to Fairtex and trained with me every day. I set up like a special class for her to teach our women fight team there. But like I said, I mean, the original one was an hour long, and there was a lot more in it. It was only when it aired, it was only 25 minutes. They cut a lot of it out, but yeah, I'm still in there quite a bit.
Wicked, man. I've never really been on anything of note.
Yeah, that was my on-screen debut, man. And yeah, I had like a black eye or something, and I'm like watching it, and I'm like, man, it's weird watching yourself. Like, I'm usually the guy, like even when like all the cameras come for like the big fights and stuff, I'm hiding. I don't want to be on. I don't want to be on camera. Like, I'm not that kind of guy. I would rather just do the work kind of behind the scenes, But for that one, I didn't really have a choice. Like, you know, the whole pretext of it was she was coming to Thailand to see an old friend and, you know, talk about shit. And so that's what it was.
Yeah, I find it difficult when I have to edit these, you know, and when I was editing my videos when I was cycling, it's like, because I'm not used to seeing myself, and it's like,
Yep.
ooh,
I was like, oh man.
Feel awkward, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not really enjoy that. And you know, after a while, you kind of got used to it, and I'm just like, man, you just you have to have no shame, just none.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got I got haters out there, you know that people are they're hated on me or whatever. They can hate away, and I'm here working hard, you know. So whatever, you know, I kind of just had to let it go and not worry about it.
I'm too busy to hate other people like now, you know what I mean? It's like,
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, man, I
do
got
my thing, just
people
enjoy
are
my
focused
life.
on hating me, and I'm focused on getting better. So fuck them, you know.
Yeah.
I'm focused on business. I'm focused on training. I'm focused on other things, so they can think about me. And you know, just like Conor McGregor said, you know, losers focus on winners, and winners focus on winning.
Yeah, yeah, and there is so much of that, and it makes your life a lot better, doesn't it? If you're not getting pissed off with other people and everything, you know, because like I used to be really bad for that. I used to be really angry and everything. I think I'm not diagnosed. I had PTSD from an event when I was young, and
sure,
you know, it's only the last couple of years where I've really got over that. You know what I mean? It feels so much. The world's a nicer place now.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, man, I'm the kind of guy that I want everybody to like me, you know, and I heard like, oh man, some people aren't real happy with me. I was like, huh. At first, it kind of really bothered me, and then after a while, I was like, man, these people are thinking about me. I was like, I don't think about them at all. So I'm living in their brain, and they're not even on my radar. They're not, you know. So whatever.
The best I ever heard to that was I don't go now. I used to go to AA, and so I'm 20 odd years sober, and there was this guy going off. This fella come up to me one day and he said that for years I had a resentment against you, and he goes, he turned to him, he goes, didn't feel a thing, mate. I just went in there.
Whatever. It's like that. I mean,
I spent all that time hating you.
Yeah, it's true. Like, you know, somebody was telling me one day, they're like, man, love and hate, they're on the same side of the spectrum. That means you care.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, people think the opposite of love is hate. And like, it's not true. It's like love and hate are both on the same side. They both mean you care. He goes, people are hating on you, they care about you. He goes, the opposite of both of those are indifference. He goes, you know, my friend is like, dude, the best thing that you can ever do, you know, when you're having girl problems or whatever, is you can't focus on it and message her and, you know, like hate on her. The best thing you can do is be indifferent, because they hate that. It's like, man, that's kind of a good point. And you gotta deal with your haters that way too. It's like, that's cool that you've been thinking about me. I don't even know your name. You know, like, who are you?
Yeah,
that's the best thing that you can do, in my opinion. So I don't know. It took me a while to get over that, but I knew, like, you know, when I did the thing on ESPN, I was like, oh great, some people are gonna be hating on me out there, but whatever, fuck them. I don't care.
I'm gonna go try and download it.
I focus on winning, man, and you know, losers can focus on me. I don't care.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, you know what I mean. If my life's shit, then I'll look at other people's lives and try and pull that down. You know, and then
that's kind of what happens, man.
Yeah, and that's the world at the moment, isn't it? Like you're saying with at the beginning, you know, about the world, and it's like divide, and everyone wants to.
It is, and that's why I don't want any part of it, man. I'm not out there hating on anybody. I just do my thing, and I focus on getting better, whether it's business or training or, you know, even like, you know, being a better husband, whatever it is. I mean, I'm here working on getting better and self-improvement, and you know, people want to think about hating on me, then that's how they want to spend their time. Cool.
Yeah, you fuck up your life, mate. Take care.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, it means nothing to me. So whatever.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Do you have any other questions, Russ? Anything else you wanted to go over?
We've been going on nearly 2 hours now, man. You know what I mean?
Oh shit. Yeah. I better start working.
Yeah. So thanks very much, man.
Is that it?
Yeah. Well, unless there's anything else.
I don't. I just couldn't really hear what you said, but.
All right. So there is something I want to speak to you about after this. So for 2 seconds, if that's okay.
Oh, sure, no problem.
So I'll cut the video now. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on, Russ. It was my pleasure.